Let's put our hands together and welcome Mr. Bill Whittle to the stage.
Hi, everybody. What an incredible honor it is to follow Ted Cruz on stage. I actually preceded him last time I saw him. Ted Cruz is one of the most remarkable men in politics because you can just watch him speak. You know he's the real deal. You know he's speaking from the heart. He's still backstage, I think, still probably within the sound of my voice. So before I get started tonight, if you're back there, Ted, just two quick pieces of advice for you. First of all, whatever materials you may be stockpiling down in Texas in order to build a wall on the Mexican border, I would instead deploy them in a circle around Austin, and don't let any of that thinking get out of Austin and into the rest of Texas. And the second thing I would say to Ted is, just as speaking as a friend, is I notice he likes to go back and forth. I'd get used to standing behind the podium if I were you, Mr. President. It provides a little ballistic protection. Not against bullets or anything, but those weenies don't know how to operate a gun anyway. But if somebody wants to throw a bran muffin at you or a glitter bomb, this keep most of your outfit clean, so I'm just gonna pretty much stay right here. I was listening to President unilateral military action just a few moments ago out there. And I have to tell you, if you had heard what he just said, in contradiction of everything he ran against and contradiction of all of the criticisms he leveled against George Bush, who I might remind the current president was able to get several UN resolutions and something like 30 allies on board before he went overseas. I just want to tell you, listening to President Obama speak just got me so fired up to come out and talk to you people, because I am tired to losing to these traitor narcissist weenies. I'm just sick of it. So let's talk about how we can do that. Let's talk about how we can win. We need candidates like Mr. Cruz who are not only able to articulate the message, they actually have the courage, the personal courage to vote against it. That goes a long way. But I would like to talk to you very briefly about something that's in my wheelhouse, which is the intersection of pop culture and politics. Everybody talks about politics and pop culture like they're separate things. Everybody says, well, the left has Hollywood, but we have whatever. But if the left has Hollywood, they're going to win. And the reason they're going to win is because people, we learned this from the last election, people don't vote based on what they feel, what they think about. They don't vote based on what they know. They vote based on how they feel about things they learn from the pop culture. As I said earlier today, exit polling of people who voted in November said that Mitt Romney won on the economy, which was far away the most important issue. Mitt Romney won that by 20 points. He won on the deficit reduction, he won on jobs, he won on defense, won on everything. Obama won the election because they asked, who cares most about you? And Obama, I think, won 89% of that particular vote. I know it sounds silly, but it's true. They won the election because they had managed to convince the American people that we were the villains in a story that they've been telling for 40 years. And people will never vote for the villains, not ever. Doesn't matter how good the villain's policies are, doesn't matter how boring or bland the hero is. You can have a bland, boring hero like a farm boy from Tatooine named Luke Skywalker, and you can have a dynamic, interesting villain like Darth Vader who's nothing but power, and they will take the hero every time. And as long as we're the villains in our own culture, we're never going to win elections. We never are. So we have to learn how to fight that fight. And I've got just a few minutes to help teach you do that. Now, if you don't think that pop culture has an effect on you, if you don't think that there's a political message that comes in through movies and television, let's just do a little experiment. I always enjoy playing this game. I'm going to start a sentence, and I'm going to ask you to finish it. If I was a political operative, one of Barack Obama's progressive allies, let's say, and I could start a political statement, and you could finish the sentence, we both know that I had you, right? We both know that I had such incredible control over what you were thinking about that if I could start a sentence and you finished it, I had you. So I'm going to start a couple of sentences, and you can finish them. Ready? Look, up in the sky, it's a bird. Okay, we'll go a little bit younger this time. Here's one for people about my age. Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip. Started from this tropic shore aboard this tiny trip. And one finally for the younger ones out there. It seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV. So what am I getting at here? Well, what I'm getting at here is this. If you could finish the sentence from Superman, if I could say, look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, and you could go, it's Superman, then that means that you know the finishing lines of the Superman introduction. You didn't have to go to a website. Nobody had to hand you a pamphlet. You knew how to finish that sentence because Superman was in your head. He'd been in your head for 40 years. And everything that Superman represents politically, truth, justice, in the American way, is in your head too. Any audience of people that grew up with classical Superman automatically love this country because Superman is about the best America that we could be. And when Superman was all over the pop culture, we were a nation that loved this country. Now, 20 years after the peak of Superman's popularity, along comes Gilligan's Island. That's pretty neutral, kind of, in terms of politics. Really about the only message you can get from Gilligan's Island is, if you want to get off the island, all you really have to do is just kill Gilligan. You'll be off next week. But, if you're a young person out there today, and you can finish the theme song from Family Guy, then all of the anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-Christian, anti-morality messages of Family Guy are in your head as completely and thoroughly as that theme song is. You're programmed by the pop culture. You're programmed by story. Everything we do is story. When you meet relatives at Thanksgiving, the first thing you want is you want the stories. What happened? How's Uncle Joe doing? The Bible is a collection of stories. And when you get out of here today, you will go home and turn on the story box and you watch hours and hours of stories. It's all about stories. And if we're the villain in all of the stories that are told, we're never going to win another election again, ever. We have to go on the offensive. We can't be the victims of the mythology anymore. So, for 40 years now, the progressives on the left have been telling the same story to the American people. They tell it in virtually every movie that's made, in every television show that's made, in every news broadcast, but mostly in the movies and television and music. They tell the same story to the American people, and by telling them that same story again and again and again in thousands of different forms, but with the same exact message, they have turned us into a nation that is at least 50% socialist and collective and gets worse every single day. So, first thing we have to do is we have to understand what that message is. What is the message? Not just that our kids are being told, but that you're being told, because it's actually even affecting you. Even you, point of the spear conservatives, are affected by this message. So, what's this message that the progressive left has been telling all this time? Excuse me one moment while I ruin my political career. Thank you. Well, they tell you the same. They tell you basically it's not a complex message because the simpler the message is, the better it is for them, the easier it is to remember. So if you think about it, every movie, every TV show that you and your children, especially your children, get contains the same three messages, and they're very simple. The first message that they tell our kids all the time is that wealth is unearned. Wealth is unearned. Every time you see a movie and the reveal of the villain, who is it? It's a bad guy, it's a businessman. Maybe he's testing drugs on legitimate third world people in India in order to get more of his filthy money. Maybe it's some manufacturer who's putting out a car that he knows it's going to explode and he doesn't care if people die as long as he gets his money. Wealth is unearned and rich people are evil. Now, why is that so important that they constantly preach that wealth is unearned? Well, because if wealth was earned, if it was the product of hard work, then taking away somebody's wealth and giving it to somebody else would be stealing, wouldn't it? It'd be stealing. But if wealth is unearned, if rich people took more than their fair share of a limited pie, well, then taking their money and giving it to other people's not stealing, it's justice. It's justice, social justice. So in order for them to tell their story of socialism and collectivism, they have to tell you that wealth is unearned. They do this all the time. The second thing they'll tell our young people especially is they'll tell them that everybody's special. How many times do you think you hear that? And everybody's special. We're going to play a baseball game. We're not going to keep score because then there'd be winners and losers. Everybody's special. Everybody gets a gold star. What does that get them? Well, Think about this. If everybody's special, that is essentially the same thing as saying nobody's special, right? If everybody's special, then nobody's special. Everybody's the same. If nobody's special, then what does achievement mean? If you're just as good of a person, if you spent your entire life out back of a 7-Eleven smoking blunts, and some other guy was working his tail off for 20 years learning how to be a brain surgeon, but if everybody's special, what's the difference? What does achievement mean? What does success mean? What does hard work mean? What does individuality mean if everybody's special? Nothing. Now, you can't tell the American people that nobody's special, because that'd be mean. But you can tell them that everybody's special, and that means exactly the same thing. So that's the second thing they tell our kids. And the third thing they tell us all the time is pretty simple, too. They say, let us help you. Let us help you. We just want to give you free health care. We want to give you free cars. We want to give you a free phone. Let us help you. Why won't you let us help you? We're just trying to help you. It's those darn Republicans who are trying to stop us from helping you. We just want to help you. Let us help you. All we want to do is help you, give you free food and free clothing and free transportation and free phones, and all we expect in return is all of your money, all of your worth, all of your freedom, all of your work. All you have to do is work one day every other year on the first Tuesday in November. That's the only work we're going to ask of you, is 2 hours of work once every 2 years to go down and pull the lever for us, and then we can continue to help you. It's imprisonment and it's slavery. So how do we get it back? How do we win it back? Well, if we start talking about constitutional values and fiscal responsibility and all these other things that we do because we're right, if we start depending on history and logic and reason and all of the things that we have as weapons in our arsenal and just lay those out to people, they're not going to get it because it's not a story. We have to put it to them in a way that is understandable. The way the Bible teaches ethics is through stories. The Good Samaritan, the prodigal son, they're stories. So we have to be able to tell a story, and we have to be able to sell 3 things back to the American people. And frankly, folks, if we can't sell these 3 things to the American people, we need to be in another line of work. Because if we want to recover this country, we have to match those 3 messages that the left has with 3 simple messages of our own. And these 3 things that we have to sell back to the American people are pretty simple. We have to sell freedom, private property, and virtue. But you can't use those words anymore because young people have been so removed from the ideas behind these concepts that when you say these words like virtue, they think you mean coming to them and saying you're not allowed to have sex till you're, 70 or something. But that's not what it means. So we have to take these 3 things and put them in very easy to understand terms. There's nothing to it, really. Freedom, what's freedom? If you're trying to sell freedom to people who only know freedom as a word on a piece of parchment because they've had so much of it for so long, how do you sell freedom to young people? You say to a group of young people, you say, raise your hands if you like to be told what to do. Raise your hands. How many of you out there like to be told what to do? None of them. None of them like to be told what to do. How many of you like to tell other people what to do? None of them will raise their hands there either, although many of them would. So we say, no, I agree with you. I don't like to be told what to do, and I don't like to tell other people what to do. I think we should be left alone. I think we should be able to do what we darn well want to do. What do you think? I agree. They agree too. They're already a third of the way back home to conservatism, to individuality, to becoming freedom-loving Americans. Do you want to be left alone, yes or no? Yes, I do. So do we. That's what we're all about, being left alone. We're not the ones who are trying to tell you how big your sodas can be and whether or not you have to wear helmets and whether there has to be a warning label on this skateboard or whether or not how much your thermostat is going to be set at. They are. They're the ones who are telling you what to do. We want to be left alone. What's the second thing we have to sell people on? Private property. How do you sell them on private property? I did a speech at Oberlin College. I mentioned this earlier. Oberlin is the most liberal college in America. Oberlin College is where reason and logic go to die. And I asked these students, I said, how many of you up there consider yourselves to be socialists? And 7 of them, 7 out of 10, said, yes, I do. And I'd say, okay, what's the core precept of socialism, you socialists? And they really couldn't answer me because they don't really know. So I said, I'm not really here to argue your side of the argument for you, but I'll do it anyway. I have some time on my hands. Isn't it from each according to his ability to each according to his need? Yeah, that's it. We like that. Okay, all of you kids out there who are socialists, I have an iPhone 5. What do you guys have? And I held up my iPhone, and they have droids, and they have all these other things. I said, I got an iPhone 5. I said, all of you socialists out there, I want you to bring your phones down and put them down to the front of the stage here. Just walk them down, leave them on the stage. What do you want our smartphones for? Well, I'm not a progressive. I'm not going to steal them. But I'll tell you what I will do. We're going to take all of your socialist phones, and when I'm done talking, all of us together are going to go to downtown Cleveland, and we're going to sell these phones for a bunch of money. We should be able to get $2,000 out of these phones easily. That's $120 bills. And then we're going to take those $20 bills and distribute them to the homeless people in Cleveland. So bring your phones down so we can redistribute the wealth from each according to his ability to each according to his need. You know how many of them came down? You know why? Because they're not socialists, they're capitalists, that's why. They're rock-ribbed capitalists when it comes to their own private property. They're all about redistributing other people's wealth to themselves, but when it's time to redistribute their wealth to somebody else, suddenly they're conservatives. And they know it, and they can't stand being pointed out to them that their Xbox 360, their toy, could feed a family in Africa for a year. So if you're really a socialist, sell the Xbox 360 and distribute the money, but they won't because they know that's their property. Hey, you can't take my phone, this is my phone. I agree. It's not really your phone, your parents bought it for you, but for the sake of the argument, I agree. So it's your stuff, right? That's the second thing, it's your stuff. And finally, the third thing is simple, it's very simple. Don't be a jerk. We believe in virtue. What does virtue mean? It's not like chastity. Virtue just means don't be a jerk. Raise your hand if you think it's okay to be a jerk. Raise your hand if you think it's okay to hit people or take their stuff. How many young people you think agree that that's okay? None of them. Okay. Don't be a jerk. Don't hit people. Don't take their stuff, because if you're not a jerk, then we can leave you alone. But if you are a jerk, now we need police cars, and we need cameras, and we need surveillance, and we need lawyers, and we need judges and bailiffs and prison guards and all the rest. Leave us alone. It's your stuff. Don't be a jerk. They're back, and they're conservatives. They're on our team again. It's not that hard. So I'm out of time, so I'll just close by telling you this. If we cannot sell something this simple to the American people, if we keep getting bogged down in politics and policy and not talk about philosophy, morality, values in a way that is a story, then we don't deserve to win. We don't deserve to win. If we can't do something that simple, we don't deserve to win. So in a nutshell, what are our two stories? The conservative message versus the big progressive message. If I had to put it in a sentence, I would say this. The conservative message, the conservative view of America is that we are a nation of steely-eyed missilemen with our eyes on a far horizon. We believe in loud guns and hot women and fast cars. We want to do what we want to do all the time, and we don't like a bunch of high school student council weenies telling us what we can do, when we can do, or how we are going to do it. We believe in freedom. We believe in prosperity. We believe in hard work. And if you work your tail off and you want to own 7 houses, and if 7 is the limit, then that's your business. If you want to smoke a blunt, that's your business too. It's your business, not my business. We believe in limited energy and the power of the human mind to achieve miraculous goals. We have 6 flags upon the moon, and there's nothing that we can't do if we put our minds to it. What's the big progressive message? What's the progressive vision for the future? A family of 10,000 humans left on the earth, sitting in thatched huts, sitting around burning cow pies, pulling parasites off each other, eating their sustainable algae cakes, and raising money for the Guatemalan water snake. Gee, I wonder which one I want to be a part of. It's the message, it's the politics. I'm over time, but I'll tell you this. If I ran the political wing of this country, I would abolish the term Tea Party. I had this conversation at a high school. I mentioned this in my session earlier. Kids said to me, I want to start a Tea Party group at my high school. What do you think I ought to do? How do you think I ought to sell it? I said, don't call it a Tea Party. Don't say Republican, and don't say conservative. Say at 2:30 on Tuesday in room 402 will be a meeting of the Rebel Alliance. And when they ask you When some kid asks you, the Rebel Alliance, what's that? Don't say politics, don't say anything. If they say, what is this Rebel Alliance thing? Turn to them and say, I'm not allowed to tell you about it. Oh, come on, man. What have we done? We've already set up a curiosity about the story, and we've already put them on the defensive so that they want to be in the story. I really can't talk about it. Really? No. Come on, you got to tell me something. Well, it's not for you. What do you mean it's not for me? It's not for you, dude. You can't handle this. Because if you're going to be a member of the Rebel Alliance, you're going to start out being outnumbered. We're outnumbered 100 to 1 on our best day. Go back to the rest of your pals in the Obama camp and you can all go along your business. You're not fit enough to be a member of the Rebel Alliance, because if you're a member of the Rebel Alliance, you have to know how economics work and history works, and sometimes things aren't as they seem. And it's only through a lifetime of a dedication of a lifetime to our mad Jedi skills that a small handful of us can get into these beat-up X-Wing fighters, get out there and face wave after wave after wave of TIE fighters, roll into that Death Star trench, evade the incoming laser blast, pickle off 2 photon bombs, put them in a hole the size of a pie tin, and get out of there before that Death Star blows up and takes everything with us. So you had better hope that we succeed. And parenthetically, the meeting of the Rebel Alliance will be in room 402 at 4:30.